Well, are we ready to go?
Yep, you're having another good hair day.
Thanks, man.
No problem.
Greetings, civil engineers. Welcome back to the update. The next update, or the update part 2.
I'm Jason Burnside. This is my colleague, Mike Nelson, and we're from Headquarters Air Force Civil Engineering.
For those of you who watched our previous video, the update, today's session is the follow-up to implement one of the 5 initiatives we talked about.
For those of you who didn't watch the update, who are you?
I think they must live in a van down by the river.
A Chris Farley Saturday Night Live reference. Nice. So, I know you're busy, but try to find 7 minutes in your day and go watch it. What do you think, Drew? Can we flash the URL on the screen? No, I guess PA won't clear us. Okay, you'll have to find it in the email advertising today's video, or get it from a buddy who has watched it.
It's not critical to watch the update before this one, but because our measure of success is the number of hits on the site, go watch it. I think we're up to 650 views already.
Excellent. I think 670 is considered viral. So, let's make it happen, programmers. Okay, now as we predicted in the first video, this next update almost didn't happen. We did push the envelope a bit last time, and even had a couple parts censored. Diane Topliff helped us write it, and apparently you can't say.
In the meantime, since the last video, my so-called colleague, Jason, was unceremoniously traded. Well, not really traded. There was no trade. There was no player to be named later. He was taken to work industrial control systems and cybersecurity, the Cyber Squad. Come on, this is O&M programming. Who doesn't want to do O&M programming?
Are you done?
I suppose, but you did move.
Yeah, but you know these things happen in our business. And, by the way, have you now seen the viral video, The Update? Great things by great Americans.
Okay, well, maybe you should get this started.
I got it. For those of you who happened to catch the original update, you'll remember several initiatives we outlined to help improve the project approval process. I think Blake has a slide for us. The conversion and repair definitions are complete, and we're very close to launching the project approval portal.
Stay tuned for the update part 3 for training on the project approval portal.
And for the reduced content in the 1391's initiative, the update to attachment 2 of AFI 32-1032 is well underway. Which brings us to the project approval timeline, today's topic.
The new timeline primarily affects FY19 projects. For those of you playing in the centralized program, it's the projects you submitted in the BCAMP that have a good chance of making the CTO.
For those of you whose funding comes from outside the centralized program or other people's money, RDT&E, working capital funds, or any others, first, congrats on securing those funds. And second, this timeline applies to you too. It's for any FY19 project you expect to get funding that requires higher headquarters approval.
Before we talk about the project approval timeline, it's probably important to clarify a couple things. Each project at every threshold requires 2 kinds of approval, funding approval and programming approval. They're separate, they have different drivers, and have different processes.
When you submit projects for approval in the AFCAMP, which includes the integrated priority list and the construction tasking order, that process is about funding approval, not programming approval. We've had some award violations with bases and agents misunderstanding the approval difference, and these mistakes could consider statutory violations.
Programming approval, on the other hand, is driven by law, and responsibility is redelegated to various levels for specified thresholds. Repair projects, which we're talking about today, over $5 million, require approval at the air staff, and the threshold for approval at Air Force IMSC is $4.5 million. We've been working on pushing approval responsibility down to lower levels and have made headway, but we had a few problematic projects this year that are causing some hesitation. Credibility in solid programming and evidence of good asset management will help in that discussion.
So let's get into it by first putting a plug in for FY18 projects. Approval request packages are due to Air Force AFIMSC IZB by February 1st, though I'm sure AFIMSC will take them anytime before then. In fact, Mike tells me they've already reviewed and staffed a few FY18 projects, so kudos to those bases. For centrally funded projects, the CTO has been out since May, so folks in the field should be aware of which projects require approval. Go get them.
As you'll see in a moment, we'll be working the FY18 approval request packages at the same time as the FY19 approval packages. The first year of working this process will carry a little more workload than future years, but once we get past the year of transition, it should be smoother and more balanced for all.
Why is this new timeline important? Driving a prescribed timeline is something we've been thinking about for some time. Emily, can you bring up the slide showing us one of the concerns with the current process?
These charts show what we call the crisis bow wave from FY14, FY15, and FY16. What's on the diagrams are when projects arrived in our office. 40% of the fiscal year's approval requests didn't show up in our office until the last quarter of the year. In FY17, it was even worse, with 60% of the projects not getting to us until the last minute. Notice how many arrived in our inboxes as late as September with hopes of awarding before the end of the fiscal year.
This is problematic for everyone involved. The bases get concerned about being able to award and not lose money. Higher headquarters staffs get concerned about solid reviews and staffing quickly. And our leaders are faced with a sign or die. And, as we found out this year, die is part of that option. None of us want to be in that position again.
The evolution of the AFCAMP gave us a good opportunity to solve this dilemma that's been on our minds for a few years. We can take advantage of work the planners and programmers will already be doing to compete for funding and use some of that same work for project approvals.
The time is right for a new project approval timeline. Matt has a chart that may help explain. Across the top of the chart is a rough timeline of the AFCAMP and CTO process. Working from left to right, the FY18 CTO was published last May. FY19 requirements were due in October. Scoring, validation, prioritizing will take place over the next several months, with a new CTO in the spring.
Using AFCEC's validation docs calculator found in the AFCAMP business rules and plugging in a repair project over $4.5 million shows that a draft DD 1391, planning charrette report, analysis of alternatives, cost estimate, and Smart Start tool are all required to compete. These same documents are either required or are supportive for programming approval.
We'll build the new approval process across the bottom of the screen. You'll see that FY18 projects are due February 1st.
For FY19 projects, you should already have a pretty decent idea of which projects are competitive for funding based on the technical score. So you can start working those packages now and submit by March 15th.
Once you submit your FY18 approval request packages in February and FY19 request packages in March, or sooner, the AFIMSC, AFCEC, and Headquarters Air Force teams will work together to review and provide comments. Between March and June, we'll work with the bases to tighten up the packages for leadership review and approval.
If approved in the summer of 2018 as shown on the timeline, the FY19 projects will be ready in advance of the planned year of execution rather than coming and screaming for attention with no time to spare at the end of the year. And any FY18 projects submitted on time will get a solid review and not be coming to us in crisis mode before bids expire or money is lost.
Eventually, we hope to have a single site to submit documents for both the AFCAMP and programming approval, but we're not there yet. So we still need you to submit the documents for your programming approval request to AFIMSC IZB.
With many of the documents being the same for both processes, working the approval packages in parallel to the AFCAMP should be complementary. Add in a certificate of compliance, site plans, and drawings, and you're close to a complete approval package.
Initiatives AFCEC is working for requirements development, cost estimating, planning charrettes, etc. will play right into this timeline. We highly encourage you to take advantage of their tools, guidance, and assistance.
FY19 projects not submitted by 15 March will likely not get reviewed until the next fiscal year and may be put at risk of higher scrutiny, not having a proper COA review, not having ample time for you and agents to adjust, our staff's not having capacity to review, and you not being able to let agents and contracting know you're ready in time.
FY18 projects not submitted by 1 February will also be even at more risk because the FY19 packages that come in on time will get priority for review. In other words, FY18 projects not submitted on time are in jeopardy of not getting approved this fiscal year.
So that's pretty much it for the new project approval timeline. Submit your FY18 project request by 1 February and FY19 approval request by 15 March.
Before we wrap up, I'd like to put in a plug for getting planning charrette reports funded. Our understanding is that PCR funding was left on the table last year and used for other things. If you want to get a PCR funded, just submit an RFF. If a project has a reasonable score and AFCEC isn't out of funding yet, it will likely get the money.
That's it for part 2 of our update series.
Keep staying classy, programmers.
Thanks for stopping by, programmers.
Good night and good luck.
Good day.
And so it goes?
Peace out.
What he said.